Robert Durst was born into one of New York's wealthiest families, but became best known for his ties to numerous offenses, including the disappearance of his wife and the murders of his best friend and a neighbor in Texas. Durst was born on April 12, 1943, to real estate tycoon Seymour Durst and his socialite wife, Bernice Hurstein. Now, Robert grew up in Scarsdale with his three younger siblings, Douglas, Tommy, and Wendy. Durst's mother, Wendy, died when he was 7 years old after either falling or jumping from the roof of the family's home in the suburbs of New York City. Durst was a loner and would long torment his siblings. He would later claim that he witnessed his mother's death, but his brother Douglas denies these claims. After getting his bachelor's degree in economics, Durst briefly enrolled in a doctoral program at the University of California, Los Angeles, where he would meet Susan Berman, a Jewish mob princess from Las Vegas. The two remained friends for decades. He then returned to New York City in 1969 and went to work for the family business, the Durst Organization. The family business was behind a dozen skyscrapers in the city and was the Big Apple's largest landlord. Durst was often described as mild-mannered and charming. He married his wife, Kathleen Durst, in 1973. Kathleen went missing, and Durst would tell news outlets, "I think Kathy's still alive." He even suggested that Kathleen might have run away after having some sort of breakdown because of their marital problems. No charges were ever filed against Durst in the killing or disappearance of Kathleen Durst, although most of her family was convinced Durst was the one behind her disappearance. Kathleen was declared dead in 2017, although her body was never found. In the early 1990s, Durst started acting erratically and was fired from the family business, and his family cut off communications with him. In 2000, Westchester DA Janine Pirro reopened the investigation into Kathleen's disappearance because prosecutors said Suzanne Berman said she was going to tell investigators what she knew. 2 months later, Suzanne Berman was found dead in her LA home from a shot in the head at point-blank range. Now, Durst was accused of gunning down Berman in her Los Angeles apartment in December of 2000 to cover up other suspected slayings, that of his first wife, Kathleen McCormick Durst, who vanished into thin air February 1st, 1982 in New York. Now, Durst gained national attention in 2001 when he was the subject of a manhunt after body parts belonging to his neighbor, Morris Black, were found floating in Galveston Bay, Texas. At the time, Durst had been hiding out in Galveston, disguising himself as an old mute woman named Dorothy Sinner. Durst was arrested for shooting and dismembering Black, but with the help of his new wife, Deborah Lee Sheraton, posted $300,000 bail and skipped town. He was eventually caught in Bath, Pennsylvania, after trying to steal a $5 sub, Band-Aids, and a newspaper from a Wegmans supermarket. Durst was acquitted of Black's murder, claiming self-defense in 2004. Durst remained fairly quiet for the next few years until he agreed to be interviewed for a 6-part docuseries called The Jinx, going against the advice of his lawyers. This series was credited with unearthing key evidence leading prosecutors to charge Durst in Berman's murder. While his mic was still hot, Durst slipped. "What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course." Just before the premiere of the show, Durst was arrested for Berman's murder at a hotel in New Orleans, where he was going by the name of Everett Ward. Durst was tracked to his hotel because he had made 2 calls to his home to check his voicemail. Employees said he had been wandering aimlessly around the hotel lobby and mumbling to himself for 4 days since arriving at the hotel. Durst was arrested with a .38 caliber revolver with 4 live rounds and 1 spent shell casing. He also had 5 ounces of marijuana, maps of Louisiana and Cuba, a fresh toned latex mask, a fake ID, and over $43,000 in cash. Durst is believed to having been planning to leave the United States and flee to Cuba, since the U.S. and Cuba have no extradition treaty. Now, Durst's trial was scheduled to begin in March of 2020, but was delayed again for 14 months because of the pandemic. The trial finally began in May of 2021, and the jury reached its verdict on September 17, 2021. Durst, now 78 years old, was found guilty of first-degree murder by a jury of his peers. He was sentenced to life in prison. Soon after his conviction, Durst was indicted for the 1982 murder of his wife, Kathleen. Durst's health was declining, and he was placed on a ventilator after testing positive for COVID-19. He was also battling bladder cancer. He died in a state jail facility in Stockton, California, in the early morning hours of January 10th, 2022.